How long can a secret survive beneath the waves before it forces itself to the surface? The question echoed through Emma Harris's mind like the tide whispering against cold rocks. 15 years had passed since that morning, the day her husband, Daniel, and their 10-year-old daughter, Lily, sailed away from the Seattle marina and vanished into the open water. It was supposed to be a simple weekend trip, a father and daughter reconnecting before school resumed. Daniel had smiled that morning, that confident, easy smile that used to make her trust him without hesitation. "Just 2 days," he'd said, tugging Lily's braid playfully. "We'll bring you back seashells and stories." She laughed, kissed them both goodbye, and watched the Seraph glide out across the misty bay. She never saw them again. For months, Emma believed they'd find them, that Daniel's experience at sea would bring them home. The Coast Guard searched for weeks. Divers swept the waters. Volunteers combed the beaches. Nothing, except Lily's small red life jacket, washed ashore 30 miles south, tangled in seaweed. The funeral had 2 empty caskets. She refused to fill them with anything less than certainty. Years turned to silence. Emma's home in Queen and became a museum of what once was. Lily's room frozen in time, Daniel's jacket still hanging by the door, and a framed photo by the fireplace. A young family smiling against a blazing sunset. Every year on the same weekend, she'd light 2 candles by the window overlooking Puget Sound. One for Daniel, one for Lily, and whisper, "If you're out there, come home." 15 years later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Emma's phone buzzed. A notification from an old friend, Heather, blinked across the screen. "Saw this and thought of you. Is this Daniel?" Attached was a short clip, a travel vlog shot somewhere along the California coast. The shaky footage captured boats swaying in golden light. But Emma's heart clenched when she saw him, a man in the background adjusting a sail. He moved just like Daniel. Broad shoulders, same posture, even the familiar tug of the sleeve before he tightened a knot. She froze the frame, zoomed in. The man's face turned slightly toward the camera, aged, sun-creased, but unmistakable. And beside him, the young woman laughing as she coiled a rope. Long golden hair, the same dimple when she smiled. Lily. Emma's fingers trembled. She replayed the clip over and over. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." But it was. The boat's name painted faintly across the hull confirmed it, the Seraph. Daniel's old sailboat. Her breath caught. Every memory, every night spent lighting candles, every tear shed by the window, suddenly felt like a lie. If Daniel and Lily were alive, why hadn't they come home? Her thoughts spiraled between disbelief and fury. She played the video again, 26 seconds that shattered 15 years of grief. On the 9th replay, she noticed something else. Around the young woman's neck glimmered a silver necklace, shaped like a small wave. The same necklace Emma had given Lily for her 10th birthday. Tears blurred her vision. This wasn't a coincidence. It was her daughter, alive. But the question that replaced her grief was far darker. Had Daniel taken Lily, or had Lily chosen to stay? That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The silence of her house, once sacred, now felt mocking. Every creak of what sounded like the ocean calling back old ghosts. At dawn, she drove to the Seattle marina, the same one where the Seraph had last been seen 15 years ago. The dock hadn't changed much. Weathered boards, the faint smell of salt and diesel, the sound of gulls circling overhead. She stood at slip 27, where Daniel had waved goodbye. The berth was empty now, but the memory wasn't. "Morning," came a voice from behind her. It was George, the harbor master, older now, grayer, but his sharp eyes still recognized her. "Emma Harris? Haven't seen you here in years." She hesitated. "You remember the Seraph? My husband's boat." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, hard to forget that one." I think it's still out there," she said quietly. George frowned. "What makes you say that?" She pulled up the video on her phone and handed it to him. He squinted at the screen. That's California. Looks like Half Moon Bay. But that does look like your boat. Emma swallowed. If it's true, I need to know why he never came back. George looked uneasy. Emma, after 15 years, sometimes people start new lives. Maybe he thought. She cut him off. He had a daughter with him, George. Our daughter. His expression softened. Then I'd start with the Coast Guard records. You'll need a hull ID, last registered number from his file. Might be a paper trail if the boat ever got re-registered. Emma nodded, gripping her phone like a lifeline. For the first time in 15 years, she wasn't mourning. She was hunting. What if the ocean doesn't take people? What if it keeps them? That question echoed in Evelyn's head for years. Words first spoken by a trembling fisherman at the docks, 15 years ago. He had stared out at the fog swallowing the Atlantic horizon and muttered, "Some boats never sink. They just stop coming home." Now, Evelyn stood in that same spot, older, colder, and no longer searching for closure. She just wanted truth. The small coastal town of Rockport, Massachusetts, looked almost unchanged. The same weathered boats creaked against their ropes, the same gulls screamed above, and the same salt wind carried whispers from the sea. Evelyn's daughter, Clara, had vanished with her husband Robert during a weekend sail, the day everything ended. But standing here now, Evelyn felt something was off. The town was quieter, as though it remembered more than it told. Evelyn approached Marina's diner, a peeling blue building she remembered well. Inside, the scent of coffee and fried fish clung to the walls. Locals looked up when she entered, not with welcome, but with wariness. "Afternoon," she said softly, sliding into a booth. "I used to come here years ago, with my husband and little girl." The waitress, a woman in her 50s with weary eyes, hesitated before replying. "You must be Mrs. Langley," she said, her voice heavy. "We didn't think we'd see you again." Evelyn forced a smile. "You remember me?" "Hard not to," the woman replied, setting down a chipped mug. "They say you never stopped looking." "I didn't." Evelyn paused, her gaze falling to the waves beyond the window. "But maybe I was looking in the wrong place." Later that evening, she walked the docks alone. The fog rolled in thick and slow, swallowing the last color of sunset. Wooden boards groaned beneath her feet as she passed the harbor office, now half abandoned. A door hung slightly ajar. Inside, the air was stale with salt and dust. Old logbooks lined the counter, names of boats, dates, weather notes. Evelyn flipped through until her hands froze. Robert Langley. Vessel, the Seraphine. Departure, April 12, 2010. Return. Her heart clenched. But below that entry, in faint pencil, was a second note. Vessel sighted, 7 months later. Location, off the coast of Maine. No retrieval. Evelyn whispered, "That can't be." Her breath trembled. Footsteps creaked behind her. "Looking for ghosts, Mrs. Langley?" a male voice asked. She spun around. A man stood in the doorway, his oilskin jacket glistening with mist. He looked about 60, sea-worn, with eyes that had seen storms no map recorded. "I'm sorry," she said, startled. "I didn't mean to trespass." He stepped closer. "You're the one who lost her husband and little girl, aren't you?" Evelyn hesitated, nodding. "Do you know something?" The man looked at her for a long time, then said quietly, "Not everything that's lost is gone. Some things just change shape." She frowned. "What does that mean?" But before he could answer, a gust of wind slammed the door open, and when she turned back, the man was gone. Only the sound of the waves filled the silence. Later that night, Evelyn sat in her motel room overlooking the harbor. She replayed the man's words in her mind. Change shape. She reached for her phone, old habit, and scrolled through her saved videos. There it was again, that 26-second clip she'd received weeks ago. A blurry video, sent by an unknown number. A woman's laughter. A child's giggle. The wind. The sea. And then, a glimpse of a man steering a sailboat. Her heart twisted each time she replayed it, because she knew that voice. She knew that laugh. It was Robert, but the child beside him wasn't Clara. Studio microphone. The ocean doesn't erase people, Evelyn whispered, staring at the phone's dim glow. It hides their new lives. She didn't know where the video came from, or why the man on that boat looked exactly like her husband, 15 years older. But she knew one thing for sure. Tomorrow, she would go north toward Maine, where the Seraphine had last been sighted, because some ghosts weren't waiting to be mourned. They were waiting to be found. Welcome to True Crime Files HQ, where we uncover gripping true and fictional crime stories that keep you hooked and leave you with powerful life lessons. Thank you so much for stopping by. Your support means everything. If you love stories that shock, inspire, and make you think, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a chilling new story from us. And remember, every story hides a truth. Stay curious, stay safe. What if forgetting isn't mercy, but guilt disguised as silence? Morning crept over Rockport with a kind of fog that swallowed sound. The world looked like it was holding its breath. Evelyn Langley watched the mist roll over the sea from her motel window, coffee untouched, mind tangled between fear and determination. The video still replayed in her thoughts. Robert's laugh, that strange child's voice, the sailboat drifting under a golden horizon. Every sound was a needle, pricking open memories she had buried under years of grief. She packed a small bag, slid the motel key across the counter, and asked the clerk, "How far is Bangor, Maine from here?" The man looked up, brow furrowing. 3, maybe 4 hours. You driving alone? Yes. Then you might want to take Route 1. Beautiful drive, but eerie this time of year. Evelyn forced a polite smile. I've lived with Erie for 15 years. By noon, she was on the coastal highway, the Atlantic Ocean shimmering beside her like a cold mirror. She stopped once in Camden, a postcard town with antique shops and wind-twisted trees. On a whim, she walked into a small maritime museum. Inside, old photos lined the walls, shipwrecks, storm rescues, lost vessels. And then she saw it. A black and white photo labeled Unidentified Sailboat, found 2011 Casco Bay. Her heart pounded. The vessel's curved hull, the faded name barely visible. The Seraphine. "Excuse me," she said to the museum guide, a young man sorting pamphlets. "This photo, where was this boat found?" He adjusted his glasses. "That one? Washed ashore near an old lighthouse up in Portland. No bodies recovered, no clear record of the owner. Story goes, the Coast Guard towed it, but the paperwork got lost. Happens a lot back then." "Do you know where it is now?" she asked. He shrugged. "Probably scrapped. Or maybe not. Some guy from Maine Historical said a private buyer took it years ago." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "A buyer? Do you know who?" He shook his head. "Sorry, ma'am." She stepped back, staring at the photograph again. The edges of her vision trembled, not from fear, but from the cruel possibility that Robert didn't die out there. That night, Evelyn stopped at a roadside diner just outside Portland. She sat in a corner booth, the hum of neon lights flickering overhead. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. A message. It was another video. Just 3 seconds long. A camera panned across a wooden porch, weathered by sea air. Then a glimpse of 2 figures. A man carrying groceries. A teenage girl laughing, barefoot, running into his arms. Evelyn froze. The girl's hair, golden brown, like Clara's had been. But the girl looked at least 16. Clara would have been 20 now. Still, the resemblance was unbearable. Her hand shook as she whispered to herself, "It's her." It has to be her. She saved the clip, downloaded it, replayed it, over and over. A small detail caught her attention. A mailbox in the corner of the frame, numbers just visible beneath the rust. 1026, Seabrook Lane. Evelyn searched it online. Her breath stopped when the location appeared, a small coastal village in Boothbay Harbor, Maine. That's where she would go next. Hours later, rain began to fall, steady and cold. Evelyn drove in silence, headlights slicing through the mist. Her mind replayed the man's words from the harbor. Not everything that's lost is gone. She didn't believe in ghosts anymore, but she did believe in secrets, and every mile brought her closer to the one truth she had never considered, that Robert hadn't died. He had chosen to disappear. When she finally reached Boothbay Harbor, dawn was breaking. The sea glittered under thin sunlight. The town was small, quiet, unremarkable, the kind of place people come to start over. She parked across the street from the mailbox marked 1026, Seabrook Lane. Her eyes moved to the house behind it. Pale blue siding, white fence, roses in the yard. A woman stepped onto the porch, phone in hand, calling out, "Honey, breakfast's ready." A man followed, sitting down a toolbox. Evelyn's world tilted. It was Robert, older, beard streaked with gray, laughing, alive. For 15 years, she lit candles for a ghost. But ghosts don't rebuild houses, they build lies. Evelyn's tears blurred the view as she whispered, "How could you?" Then, through the misted windshield, the girl appeared again, running down the steps. Her laughter rang like bells, and for one dizzy, cruel moment, Evelyn saw her own daughter's face. The morning air was thick with sea mist and disbelief. Evelyn sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. The house across the street glowed soft and golden in the early sun, like something from a memory that refused to stay buried. Through the windshield, she could see him, Robert Langley, alive, older, heavier around the eyes, but undeniably him. His laugh still carried that low, familiar rhythm, the same one that used to echo through their home when he chased little Clara through the living room. Except now, he was chasing another girl, a teenager with the same laugh, the same eyes, the same everything. Evelyn whispered under her breath, voice cracking, "Clara, my God, is that you?" For hours she sat there, frozen between grief and rage. Cars passed by, waves crashed faintly in the distance, and still she couldn't move. She remembered the search teams, the empty casket, the memorial where people patted her shoulder and told her, he was a good man. The sea just took him. The sea didn't take him. He ran to it. By noon, Evelyn had convinced herself she needed proof. She waited until Robert drove off in a pickup truck, old, rusted, with the words Boothbay Marine Repairs on the side. Once he was gone, she stepped out of her car, pulling her hood low against the drizzle. Her boots crunched softly along the gravel driveway. Each step felt like walking into a grave she hadn't realized was open. The porch creaked. The door was slightly ajar. She could hear soft music inside, something nostalgic, an old tune from the 2000s, maybe one Robert used to hum while working in his shed. Evelyn's trembling hand pushed the door wider. The house smelled of cinnamon and ocean air. Photos lined the walls, family pictures, vacations, birthdays. She stopped at one, the man and the teenage girl standing by a dock, both smiling. The caption read in neat handwriting, "Summer 2023, Dad and Lily." Her heart stuttered. Lily. So the girl had a name. A new name. Suddenly, a voice behind her. "Who are you?" Evelyn spun around. The girl stood in the hallway, barefoot, clutching her phone. Same eyes. Same jawline. A ghost reborn. Evelyn's voice trembled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." The girl frowned, stepping closer. "Do I know you?" Evelyn stared at her, words caught in her throat. "You look so much like someone I once knew." "Like who?" Evelyn forced a smile. Like my daughter. The girl's confusion softened. That's sweet, I guess. She hesitated. Are you lost? My dad's not home right now. Her dad. The word stabbed deep. Evelyn swallowed the grief burning up her throat. No, I'm fine. Just passing through. This place. It used to mean something to me. The girl nodded politely. Well, okay. It's kind of private property, though. You should probably go before he comes back. Evelyn gave a faint nod and turned to leave. But before stepping out, she asked softly, What's your mother's name, dear? The girl tilted her head, puzzled. Mom's name? She stopped. Something flickered in her expression. A pause too long to be casual. Renee, she finally said. But Evelyn saw it. The hesitation. The faint twitch of the eyes when someone tells a lie they were taught to repeat. Outside, Evelyn exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her chest. The name Renee echoed in her mind like a false note in a familiar song. She walked back to her car, sat behind the wheel, and whispered to herself. She hesitated. Why would she hesitate? That's when she noticed a small figure standing in the upstairs window. Lily, peering down, watching her leave. The girl's expression wasn't fear. It was curiosity, recognition, like a half-forgotten dream that almost resurfaced. That night, Evelyn checked into a small motel on the outskirts of town. She couldn't sleep. She replayed the girl's voice, her mannerisms, her eyes. Every part of her screamed Clara. She opened her laptop and began digging. Public records, property history, business listings. Robert Langley, no record. But there was a Robert Hale, owner of Booth Bay Marine Repairs, registered 12 years ago. The timeline fit. Too perfectly. Evelyn scrolled further. Tax filings, addresses, public photos. And then she froze. In one of the tagged images, posted by the local paper, she saw Robert Hale, receiving a community award for storm rescue assistance. Standing next to him was Renee. Evelyn zoomed in. The woman's face was unmistakable. She was her sister. She didn't just lose her husband and daughter that day. She was erased by the two people who should have loved her most. Evelyn stared at the screen, numb. The betrayal wasn't just one man's lie. It was a family conspiracy, built on silence and stolen blood. Outside, the ocean roared like it had been waiting all these years to scream the truth. 15 years earlier, the sky over the Atlantic bruised purple as a storm gathered on the horizon. The Seraphine rocked gently at the dock, ropes creaking, sails half-furled. Robert Langley loaded the last cooler onto the deck, while little Clara tugged at his sleeve, barefoot, her curls damp from the mist. "Daddy, are we really sleeping on the boat tonight?" she asked. He smiled without looking at her. "Just you and me, kiddo. Like old times." From the pier, Evelyn waved. "Be careful, both of you. The weather looks rough." Robert called back. "We'll stay close to the shore. Promise." He lied. The moment the Seraphine drifted past the jetty, he cut the engine and stared into the waves. His jaw clenched. His phone buzzed once, a text from R. "Everything's ready. Don't lose your nerve." He glanced down at Clara, who was humming to herself, arranging seashells on the seat. Guilt flickered in his eyes, but only for a heartbeat. Hours later, thunder rolled. The sea turned black. Robert guided the Seraphine far from the coast, until land vanished behind a wall of rain. Clara pressed close to him. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart. Just close your eyes." He reached for the radio, turned it off. No signal. No trace. No way back. By midnight, lightning split the sky, and another boat emerged from the dark. Smaller. Faster. A woman stood at its bow, rain plastering her hair to her face. "Renee, Evelyn's sister." Robert shouted over the wind. "You're late." Renee threw him a rope. "The storm delayed me. Get the girl." Clara blinked, confused. "Aunt Renee, why are you here?" Renee forced a smile. Hey, baby. You're coming with me, okay? Clara hesitated, glancing at her father. Where's Mommy? Robert's throat tightened. She's not coming. The wave slammed against the hull. Clara screamed as Robert lifted her, passing her across the gap between the two boats. Renee caught her, arms trembling. Daddy, Clara cried. Don't leave me. Robert's voice broke. You'll be safe, I promise. Then, before the storm swallowed them, he cut the Seraphine's lights, released the rope, and let the two boats drift apart. Renee's vessel vanished into the rain. By dawn, the Coast Guard found nothing. No wreckage, no bodies. Only a piece of driftwood carved with a name, Seraphine. Back in Rockport, Evelyn waited at the docks, calling their names until her voice cracked. She didn't know that by then, Robert and Renee were already miles north, in a rented cabin near Bar Harbor, drying off by a fire. Renee held the sleeping Clara close. She thinks you're coming back for her mother, she whispered. Robert stared into the flames. She won't remember soon. Kids forget fast. Renee looked at him sharply. Do you forget fast? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wedding ring. The gold caught the firelight for a moment. Then he tossed it into the flames. Renee's breath hitched. That's it then. We're really doing this. Robert's voice was quiet. We already did. Outside, thunder rolled again, but softer this time, as if the storm itself was sighing. Back in the present, Evelyn woke in her motel room, heart pounding. She hadn't dreamed that night, yet she felt as though she'd just watched it happen. Something heavy pressed against her window. She sat up. A shape moved outside, shadowy, deliberate. A man's outline. She rose slowly, inching toward the curtain, pulse hammering. Lightning flashed. The window pane reflected a familiar face. Robert. And then he was gone. Rain hammered the motel roof like a heartbeat. Evelyn hadn't moved in hours. The reflection in her window, Robert's face, older, harder, was burned into her mind. Had he seen her? Or was he sending a message? She checked the parking lot. Empty, except for her car and a rusted blue pickup. The same one from a house. She backed away from the window, hands shaking. Then 3 knocks on her door. Slow, measured. Knock, knock, knock. Her throat went dry. Room 12 was at the far end of the building. No one should even be out here. Evelyn whispered to herself, Don't answer. But her feet moved anyway. The door creaked open. A woman stood there, dripping wet, clutching a soaked brown envelope to her chest. Renee. Evelyn's body went rigid. The years melted away, every holiday, every phone call, every smile she thought was real. Renee's lips trembled. You shouldn't have come here, Evie. Evelyn's voice was ice. You stole my family. Renee looked down. Please, let me explain. Evelyn stepped back. Explain what? How my husband faked his death. How you raised my daughter under a new name. Renee swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. You think that makes it better? Renee stepped inside, closing the door. Her eyes darted to the window. He's watching us. You don't understand. He's not who you think he is. Evelyn laughed bitterly. Oh, I understand perfectly. He's a liar. And so are you. But Renee didn't laugh. Her expression was terrified. She held out the brown envelope. You need to see this before he gets here. Evelyn hesitated, then snatched the envelope and tore it open. Inside were photographs, old, grainy, taken years apart. In each one, a man stood near a child, sometimes in a park, sometimes near a dock, always smiling. The man was Robert. The children were different. Different girls, different towns, different names. Evelyn's hands began to shake. What is this? Renee's voice was barely a whisper. They weren't the first. Clara wasn't the first. What are you saying? Renee's eyes filled with tears. Robert's been doing this for years, Evie. New towns, new lives, new daughters. Evelyn stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. No, you're lying. He found me after you. I didn't know at first. I swear. He told me Clara needed protection, that you were unstable, dangerous. I believed him, until I saw the pattern. The air in the room thickened. The rain outside grew heavier. Evelyn could hear her own heartbeat. You helped him disappear, she said, voice breaking. You helped him take her. Renee nodded, sobbing now. I thought he loved me. I thought we were saving her. But he's sick, Evelyn. He keeps starting over. He doesn't stop until someone gets too old to play his little game. Evelyn gripped the bedpost to steady herself. Her mind flashed back. The way Robert used to photograph Clara constantly. His obsession with keeping memories. The way he flinched when other parents got too close. And suddenly, it all made sense. He didn't run from guilt. He ran from discovery. Renee whispered, "He's coming tonight. He knows you're here." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Then let him come. But before Renee could answer, the room went dark. The lights flickered out. A low hum filled the air, the sound of an engine idling outside. Then a shadow moved past the window, a silhouette holding something. A crowbar, maybe, or a pipe. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. He's here. Renee backed toward the door, trembling. He won't stop this time. Evelyn opened the drawer beside the bed and pulled out a small revolver. Her hands were steady now. Neither will I. The doorknob turned. Rain spilled in through the gap as the door creaked open. Robert's voice came through the darkness, calm, cold, familiar. Evie, you shouldn't have come back. Evelyn raised the gun, but her voice cracked. Where's my daughter, Robert? He stepped inside slowly, his face half shadowed by the storm's light. She's safe. Safer than she ever was with you. Safe from what? She spat. He smiled faintly. From you. From your temper. From your breakdowns. You don't remember, do you? Evelyn's finger trembled on the trigger. Don't twist this. You took her. Robert stepped closer. You really don't remember what happened that night, do you? Her breath caught. What are you talking about? Robert tilted his head. The storm wasn't the only thing that went wrong. Lightning flashed, and in that split second, Evelyn saw something that shattered her. On the table beside him lay an old photograph of her and Clara, taken days before the trip, but the child's face had been scribbled out, and beneath it, written in Robert's handwriting, she wasn't yours. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the old note until it crumpled in her palm. The 4 words glared back at her like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. She wasn't yours. Her breath hitched. The words were written in Robert's unmistakable handwriting, firm, deliberate, steady, the kind of handwriting that used to leave love notes on the fridge, and now, 15 years later, tore her world apart. The boathouse was silent. Only the groaning timbers and the whisper of the tide moved around her. Dust swirled in the beam of her flashlight, and for a long moment she couldn't tell if the trembling in her body came from cold or the truth clawing its way out. She wasn't yours. Her knees weakened, and she leaned against the wooden post for balance. A picture frame caught the flashlight's glare. Robert and little Emily on the dock, faces lit with laughter. Evelyn's throat tightened. What did you mean, Robert? She whispered. No answer came. Only the creak of ropes and the distant sound of waves slapping against the shore. 15 years ago, she had stood here, waving goodbye as Robert and Emily sailed away on that short weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. The last image she remembered was Emily's red scarf fluttering in the wind. Then the storm came. Then the silence. The Coast Guard said the boat capsized. No bodies found. Just fragments of debris and a lifetime of unanswered questions. But now, in her shaking hands, lay the evidence that her husband hadn't just vanished. He had lied. Evelyn forced herself to breathe. Beneath the note was a thin folder, water-damaged but intact. Inside, papers, photographs, and a folded hospital envelope marked St. Francis Medical Center, Chicago. Her pulse quickened. Chicago, the city where Emily was born. Evelyn pulled out the first paper. A birth certificate. Emily Parker. But where Robert's name should have been, it wasn't. The field was blank. Her heart dropped. No, that's not possible. She flipped through the next document. It was dated a year after Emily's birth, a reissued certificate. Someone had changed it. Someone had hidden the truth. And then another paper, tucked behind it. A paternity report. Evelyn's hands began to shake violently as she read the words. Tested father, Robert Parker, excluded. Biological father, unknown. Her vision blurred. Oh my God. Robert, what did you find out? She stumbled backward, the air around her heavy, suffocating. A sudden sound broke the silence. Her phone vibrating on the old workbench. The caller ID flashed. Private number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. Nothing. Just static. Then a breath. Stop digging, Evelyn. Her heart stopped. Who is this? The line went dead. She stood frozen, the phone slipping from her hand and clattering to the floor. Someone knew she'd found the note. Someone who didn't want her to learn more. By dawn, Evelyn was on the highway, heading for Chicago. The drive was a blur of rain, road signs, memories. She couldn't get Robert's voice out of her head. I'll take care of her. You rest. Now those words felt like a curse. At sunrise, she reached St. Francis Medical Center. The building loomed gray and tall, its facade cracked with time. Evelyn walked through the lobby, her steps echoing. At the records desk, she forced a calm tone. I need to access old maternity records. Year 2004. The receptionist frowned. That's highly restricted, ma'am. Only family or authorized personnel. Evelyn cut her off, sliding a worn letter across the counter. It bore Robert's signature. To be opened if I never return. The woman's expression softened slightly. Basement archives. Third door on the right. The archive was dark, filled with rows of cardboard boxes. The air smelled of dust and old paper. Evelyn's flashlight flickered as she searched the shelves. Finally, she saw it. Birth records, 2004. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a file marked Parker Emily. Inside was a single medical report attached to a handwritten note. Patient transferred to Dr. Avery. Confidential order. Do not disclose parent identity. Her stomach twisted. She flipped to the next page, a photo stapled to the corner. It wasn't Emily. It was another infant. Similar features. Same day of birth. 2 babies. Same hospital. Same day. The handwriting scrawled at the bottom chilled her to the bone. File swap approved, per Dr. Hayes. Her mind screamed. Dr. Hayes, Robert's last name. She stumbled back, her flashlight beam jerking across the wall, until it landed on something in the shadows. A silhouette, standing between the rows. Who's there? She called, her voice trembling. No reply, just a soft scrape of footsteps. Evelyn's heart hammered as she grabbed a metal rod from the shelf. The figure stepped closer, and the light revealed a man's face she hadn't seen in 15 years. Robert. Her breath caught. Robert. He looked older, thinner, eyes hollow, but unmistakably him. You shouldn't have come here, he said quietly. Her body froze. You're alive. Evelyn, please. Listen before you do something you can't undo. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. You lied to me. You took our daughter. Robert's voice cracked. Emily wasn't ours, Eve. She never was. Her scream echoed through the cold basement. Then whose was she? Robert's eyes glistened under the flickering light. She was theirs, and they're still watching. Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears. The air in the basement felt heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. What do you mean theirs, Robert? She whispered. He stepped out from the shadows. The years had carved hollows beneath his eyes. his skin pale against the gray light spilling through the narrow window. "Keep your voice down," he said. "They have people inside this hospital still." "People? Robert, what are you talking about? Emily is dead." Robert flinched. "No, Evelyn, she isn't." The words hit harder than the note ever could. Evelyn staggered back against a filing cabinet. "You said the boat sank. I buried you both." "That was the point," he said, voice breaking. "I needed the world to believe we were gone. It was the only way to keep her safe." "Safe from who?" Robert hesitated. "The Foundation. The genetics program. You remember the fertility trial we joined after the miscarriages?" Evelyn's breath caught. The memory flashed. The glossy brochure promising hope for families who'd lost too much. The quiet hospital wing where they'd signed the papers. "You said it was routine," she whispered. "It wasn't," he replied. "They used embryos from multiple donors. Experimental mapping. They didn't tell us whose DNA they mixed. I found out the day I ran the test. Emily carried a genome they'd been tracking for years." Evelyn's stomach churned. Tracked by who? By the people who funded it. Government contracts, private labs, none of it legal. When I confronted the head researcher, he offered money and silence. I refused. That's when the threat started. He rubbed his temples, trembling. The boat trip was supposed to be an escape, but they followed us. When the storm hit, I used it. I sank a decoy hull and disappeared with her. I thought I could hide us both. Tears blurred Evelyn's sight. "So you let me mourn a grave that was empty. It was the only way they'd stop watching you." She shook her head violently. 15 years, Robert. 15 years of hell." He stepped closer, voice raw. "I never stopped watching either. She grew up, Eve. Different name, different home. But they found her again last month." "Where is she?" "Seattle," he whispered. "They called her Clara Reynolds now. She doesn't remember you, or me. They rewrote everything." Evelyn felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Then why show yourself now?" "Because they're closing the program," he said. "When that happens, they erase the evidence, including her." The fluorescent lights flickered. Somewhere above them a door slammed. Robert's head snapped toward the stairs. "They know I contacted you," he said. "We have to go now." Evelyn's instinct screamed to run, yet her mind clung to one more question. "Robert, if Emily wasn't ours, then whose child was she really?" He swallowed hard. "Mine, half mine. The other half, they called it Donor 47B. It wasn't human in the usual sense." Evelyn froze. "What are you saying?" "They'd been mapping synthetic gene sequences, military bioenhancement. Emily was the first viable hybrid. That's why they want her back." Before she could reply, footsteps thundered on the stairs. Robert grabbed her wrist. "Basement exit, east side. Don't stop." They ran between the aisles. Light knifed through the cracks as the door above burst open. 2 figures in security uniforms started down. Robert shoved a metal shelf, sending boxes crashing behind them. He pushed Evelyn through a narrow service corridor. "Go, Eve. Not without you." He stopped at the end of the hall, eyes wild. "I'll hold them off. Find her and tell her the truth." "Robert, please." He pressed something into her hand. A small flash drive sealed in plastic. "It's a genome. Proof of everything. If I don't make it." Gunfire shattered the corridor windows. Evelyn screamed, dropping to the floor. Robert turned, shouted her name. Then the sound was swallowed by the echo of sirens. Later that night, Evelyn sat in her car across from the hospital, hands shaking around the flash drive. News vans and police lights painted the glass blue and red. They were saying a man had been shot in the lower archive after attempting to steal medical records. No ID recovered. Evelyn closed her eyes. "You promised you'd keep her safe," she whispered. She plugged the drive into her laptop. A single folder appeared. Project Seraph, Parental Genome Data. Inside, dozens of files. One marked 47B. Surviving subject, Seattle branch. Coordinates. A date. Tomorrow. Evelyn stared at the screen. A sob caught in her throat, then hardened into resolve. "I'm coming for you, Emily." She started the engine. The wipers scraped across the windshield, smearing the rain into streaks of silver as she pulled into the night. Behind her, a dark SUV eased from the curb, headlights off. At dawn, the city stretched before her, cold, endless, waiting. Evelyn's reflection in the rearview mirror looked like a stranger. Somewhere out there, a daughter she hadn't held in 15 years was alive and hunted. And as the GPS led her toward the coordinates, one final thought settled in her mind like frost. If Robert was right, then the storm 15 years ago didn't take her family. It was the experiment that did. The road curved toward the rising sun. Evelyn pressed the accelerator. The hunt had begun. The rain had not stopped since Evelyn left the hospital. It fell in sheets, slashing through the night, like nature itself was trying to wash away what she'd just learned. Robert was alive. Emily wasn't hers. And the truth about that weekend sail was so much darker than she had ever imagined. She gripped the steering wheel of her old SUV, headlights cutting through the storm. Every word Robert had said echoed in her skull like a haunting refrain. "You were never supposed to find out." They were watching us, Evelyn. Even now. He had looked so broken, hollow eyes, trembling hands, but his words had carried an undertone of something else. Fear. Not of her, but of them. She didn't even know who they were yet. The GPS voice guided her to the outskirts of Pine Hollow, a forgotten neighborhood about 40 minutes from Baltimore, where the fertility clinic Robert mentioned had once stood. According to the files she'd stolen from the hospital archives, the clinic had quietly shut down 15 years ago, same year as the accident. But there was a name on the form she couldn't ignore. Dr. Alan Mercer, the man who'd signed off on her pregnancy test. His address, scrawled in faded ink, pointed to an old colonial house right in the middle of Pine Hollow. When she parked in front of it, the air felt heavier. All the windows were dark. The sign by the gate was rusted over, but she could still make out the faded words. Mercer Research Institute, private property. She took a deep breath, pushed the gate open, and stepped into the overgrown yard. Every sound, the crunch of gravel, the hum of wind, felt amplified in the silence that followed the rain. Inside the house, the air smelled of mildew and dust. The floorboards moaned beneath her feet as she walked through a narrow hallway lined with old photographs. Doctors in white coats, smiling couples holding newborns. And then, one picture made her freeze. It was her. Evelyn, younger, smiling, holding a pregnancy form. And beside her, Robert. But behind them stood Dr. Mercer, his hand on Robert's shoulder, his eyes cold and almost predatory. Evelyn followed the corridor into what looked like a small records room. Cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with dates between 1998 and 2010. She ran her hand along the dusty drawers until she found one labeled 2009, Confidential Trials. Her fingers trembled as she slid it open. Inside were folders, each with a patient's name and a barcode. Some were crossed out in red ink. Others had small notes scribbled on them. Subject terminated. Pregnancy failed. Offspring transferred. Her stomach twisted, and then she saw it. Her own file. Evelyn Hart, Subject 72A. Inside, stapled to the cover, was a printed note. Egg retrieval successful. Embryo 72A implanted into surrogate subject 72B under Project Genesis. Her vision blurred. The paper slipped from her fingers. She had carried another woman's child. Emily wasn't hers by blood, not because Robert cheated, but because she had been part of an experiment. A noise from upstairs broke the silence. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Evelyn froze. She turned off her flashlight and pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath. The steps grew closer, descending the staircase. Then a man's voice, low, gravelly. "You shouldn't be here, Mrs. Hart." Evelyn's heart pounded. "Dr. Mercer," she whispered. A figure emerged from the shadows, holding a candle. His hair was gray now, his face older but unmistakable. It was him. He smiled faintly. "I see Robert told you part of the truth, but he never told you why." Evelyn's fear twisted into anger. "Why what? Why did you use me like a lab rat? Why did you lie about the accident?" Mercer stepped closer, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. "Because Emily isn't just a child, Evelyn. She's the key to everything we built. You were chosen for a reason." "What reason?" she demanded. "Because you could never have children of your own. Because we needed someone who wouldn't question when the baby didn't look like her." The room seemed to spin. Evelyn stumbled back, her mind struggling to keep up with the avalanche of truth. All those years, her tears, her prayers, her guilt, were built on a lie. "Where's she?" Evelyn whispered. "Where's my daughter?" Mercer's face changed. For the first time, fear flashed across his expression. "You really don't know, do you?" he said softly. "Robert didn't tell you everything. She's not missing, Evelyn. She's watching you." Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. Mercer turned toward the noise, but before he could move, something heavy struck him from behind. The candle fell, rolling across the floor, its flame flickering dangerously near a pile of papers. Evelyn gasped and ducked. When she looked up again, Mercer was gone. The door at the end of the hallway swung open and slammed shut. She stumbled toward it, tripping over scattered files. Among them lay a dusty flash drive. A label was taped to it. "Emily, final session." She pocketed it and ran out into the rain. Hours later, Evelyn sat alone in her living room, laptop open, the flash drive plugged in. Her hand shook as she clicked play. The video was grainy, timestamp 15 years ago. She saw Robert, Dr. Mercer, and a young girl about 6, hooked up to monitors. Her face was pale but unmistakable. "Emily." In the video, Robert turned to the camera. "If you're seeing this, Evelyn, then you found the truth. I didn't die that day, but I had to disappear to protect her." He paused, voice trembling. "She's not ours, Evelyn. She's theirs, and they'll never stop looking for her." The video cut to black. Then one last frame flickered into view. Security footage dated 3 weeks ago. A teenage girl walking down a hallway, her hair dark, her face strikingly familiar. She looked directly at the camera, as if she knew Evelyn was watching, and then she smiled. The house was quiet again, but Evelyn's pulse refused to slow. On her laptop screen, the final frame of the video still glowed. That girl's faint smile, the same tilt of the head Emily had when she wanted to be forgiven. Only now she wasn't a child anymore. And the smile, there was something unreadable behind it. Almost aware, Evelyn replayed the clip a dozen times. Each repetition deepened the ache in her chest. She scrubbed backward, pausing at random frames. Then she noticed it. The digital timestamp flickered once. Not 2009. It flashed November 7th, 2023. The video wasn't old. It was recent. Her breath caught. If that was true, someone had filmed Emily just weeks ago and wanted her to see it. She leaned closer to the screen. Behind Emily, on the white clinic wall, hung a framed insignia, 3 intersecting rings inside a triangle. Evelyn knew that symbol. She had seen it on the folder labeled Project Genesis at Mercer's house. Her fingers trembled as she snapped a photo of the frame with her phone. Then she ran a reverse image search. A location popped up. A rehabilitation center on the outskirts of Alexandria, Virginia. It had a different name now, the Haven Institute, but the logo was unmistakable. Evelyn whispered. They renamed it. Robert's words replayed in her mind. They'll never stop looking for her. But if Emily was there, then Robert must have known all along. Rain misted the windshield as she drove east on the interstate. Streetlights flashed across her face in intervals. Light, dark, light again. Like the world couldn't decide which truth to show her. She kept the flash drive clutched in one hand as if it were a living thing. The longer she thought about it, the more questions multiplied. Had Robert sent the video himself? Was it warning or bait? And if Emily was alive, why hadn't she come home? Evelyn's mind replayed the moment 15 years earlier when Robert's sailboat disappeared into the fog. She had believed every word of the Coast Guard's report. Now she wondered who had written it. She pressed harder on the accelerator. By dawn she reached the quiet streets of Old Town Alexandria. The Haven Institute sat on a hill, gated silent. Security cameras panned lazily at its corners. There was no way to get in unnoticed. So Evelyn waited across the street in a small cafe, watching through the rain-spattered window. She ordered black coffee she couldn't taste and pretended to scroll her phone. At 8:17 a.m., a group of students walked past, wearing identical gray hoodies. One of them, taller, darker hair, turned her head slightly toward the window. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Same eyes, same faint scar across the wrist, shaped like a crescent. It was her. Evelyn stood abruptly, nearly spilling her coffee, and rushed outside. "Emily," she called. The girl stopped but didn't turn. Evelyn tried again, voice cracking. "Emily, it's me." Slowly the girl faced her. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable, but her expression was wary, almost frightened. Her lips parted. "Miss Hart." The name sliced through Evelyn like glass. "Sweetheart, it's Mom," she whispered. "It's me." The girl took a cautious step back. "I'm sorry. I think you're mistaken." Her voice, steady, polite, wasn't defensive, just trained. Like someone who'd been told exactly what to say if this moment ever happened. Before Evelyn could speak again, the girl's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her expression changed, shock then fear. Evelyn caught a glimpse of the text. "Don't trust her. She's not your mother." Ah! Her world tilted. "Robert." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Who sent that?" But the girl was already backing away. "Please don't follow me." Then she turned and ran. "Emily!" Evelyn shouted, sprinting after her. They wove through morning traffic. Horns blared, brakes screeched. The girl darted into an alley between a bookstore and an old brick chapel. By the time Evelyn reached it, she was gone. Only the faint echo of footsteps remained. Something glinted near a trash bin. Evelyn knelt and picked it up, a small mirror pendant on a broken chain. She gasped. She had given Emily one exactly like it on her 8th birthday, engraved with tiny initials on the back. She wiped the raindrops away. The engraving was still there, EH plus RH, but something else was etched beneath it now, newer and sharper. Look deeper. Back in her car, Evelyn held the pendant up to the light. Inside the mirrored surface, etched so faintly it was almost invisible, were numbers, like coordinates. She typed them into her phone's GPS. It pointed to an abandoned boathouse on the Potomac River, less than 2 miles away. Her pulse quickened. That name, Potomac, dragged her backward to the night everything started. The same river where Robert's boat had vanished. She slammed the car door and drove. The structure loomed at the edge of the water, half collapsed and creaking. The smell of wet wood and fuel filled the air. She stepped inside, flashlight cutting a cone of light through the darkness. Empty crates, torn tarps, a chair facing the river. And on the chair, another mirror pendant, this one intact, dangling from a nail. Next to it, a note written in Robert's unmistakable handwriting. "If you want the truth, come alone. Midnight. Don't bring the police. She'll be here." Beneath his signature, one last line. "You raised a miracle, Evelyn. But miracles come with a price." Wind howled through broken planks, making the whole place groan. Evelyn's flashlight flickered, then died. In the silence that followed, she could almost hear a voice, faint, childlike, echoing from the water. "Mom." Her heart leapt. "Emily." No answer. Only the rhythmic lapping of waves against the dock. But she knew what she'd heard. Evelyn backed out slowly, mind racing. Robert was alive. Emily was alive. And both were pulling her toward this place for reasons she didn't yet understand. She looked down at the pendant again. Her reflection stared back, distorted, fractured by the tiny cracks in the mirror. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw another face looking out from behind hers. A man's. Smiling. She dropped the pendant. Outside, thunder rolled across the river. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. One new message from an unknown number. Don't come to the boathouse. He's not who you think he is. The sender's name appeared a second later. Emily. Evelyn's blood ran cold. The clock on Evelyn's dashboard glowed 11:58 p.m. The rain had stopped, but fog clung to the riverbank like breath on glass. The boathouse stood in the distance, half shadow, half memory, its reflection trembling in the black water below. Every instinct screamed, "Don't go in," but every motherly pulse inside her said, "You have to." She took a deep breath and stepped into the mist. The boards creaked under her boots. Her flashlight beam swung over the peeling paint, catching remnants of an old life. Framed photos and shattered glass, rusted chains, an overturned lantern. Evelyn's heart pounded. 15 years ago, she had stood on this same dock with Robert and Emily, laughing as their small sailboat drifted into the current. That laughter had been the last sound before everything went silent. Now, even the water seemed to hold its breath. She reached the door. It was slightly ajar. Pushing it open, she whispered, "Robert." He was there, standing near the far wall, back turned, his figure outlined by the glow of a single hanging bulb. His clothes were damp, face half hidden beneath a hood. But that voice, steady, calm, was unmistakable. "You came alone." "Good." Her knees nearly buckled. "You're alive." He turned. His face was leaner, older, marked by years of hiding. But his eyes, the same piercing gray, locked on hers with an intensity that froze her in place. "You shouldn't have looked for me, Evelyn. Not now." She swallowed hard. "You sent the note. You said Emily would be here." Robert nodded once. "She will be. But she doesn't remember you. Not the way you think." Evelyn's voice cracked. "What did you do to her?" He exhaled slowly, as if the answer itself was heavy. The night of the storm, the boat didn't sink. It was taken. Evelyn blinked. Taken? By who? Robert's lips tightened. By them. The same people who funded my research. Project Genesis was never about healing trauma. It was about reprogramming identity. Emily wasn't just my daughter, Evelyn. She was their prototype. Her stomach twisted. "That's impossible. She was just a child." Robert stepped closer. "That's why they chose her. Her brain was malleable. She could adapt faster than anyone they tested. They wanted to see if memory could be rewritten completely, if trauma could be erased and replaced." Evelyn shook her head, tears forming. "So you let them take her?" "I tried to protect her, but when I realized they wouldn't stop, I made a deal. I faked our deaths, and I gave them partial access to the formula. In return, they let her live." Her voice broke. "You sold her mind." Robert's face hardened. "I saved it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out another flash drive, the same symbol of 3 rings etched on it. "This is everything you need to understand, but you have to see it here." He plugged it into a small laptop on a workbench. The screen flickered to life. Footage appeared, surveillance clips from inside a sterile white facility. Evelyn saw a young girl, strapped to a medical chair, electrodes on her temples, a scientist speaking softly. "Who do you remember, Emily?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Robert Hart, my father." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. The camera angle changed. Emily was older now, maybe 17. The same girl Evelyn had chased in Alexandria. She was standing in a therapy room, smiling faintly. A voice behind the camera said, "And who is Evelyn Hart?" Emily's smile faded. "She's the one who tried to hurt me." Evelyn stumbled back, shaking. That's not true. She was told that, wasn't she? Robert nodded. They built an alternate memory around her trauma, to keep her obedient. Evelyn's voice was trembling. Then why did she message me? Why warn me not to come? Robert's eyes darkened. Because she's starting to remember, and they can't allow that. He paused, then said something that froze her blood cold. They're already here. The door slammed open behind her. Two black-clad figures entered with silencers drawn. Evelyn gasped as a red laser dotted Robert's chest. "Run!" he shouted. Gunfire erupted. Wood splintered. Evelyn dropped behind a crate, heart racing. She crawled toward the back exit, shouting Robert. A bullet tore through the air and struck him. He fell against the wall, clutching his side. Evelyn screamed. "No!" Robert coughed blood, motioning toward the river. "Go. Find her. She's at the Haven's underground wing." He pressed the flash drive into her hand. "They'll erase her again if you don't." Evelyn's hand shook. "I can't just leave you." "You already did once," he whispered, then smiled weakly. "Don't do it again." Another gunshot. His body went still. Evelyn's scream echoed across the river as she ran into the fog, clutching the flash drive. The last proof that any of this was real. She made it to her car and sped down the dark road. Rain began again, pelting the windshield. Her phone buzzed. A message. "Unknown number. You shouldn't have come. Now they'll come for both of us." Her heart twisted. She typed back with trembling fingers. "Where are you?" No response. But then her phone pinged again. An attachment, a short audio clip. Emily's voice, whispering through static. "Mom, remember what you told me? Sometimes the monsters were familiar faces." The message ended. Evelyn stared into the darkness ahead, realization dawning like ice spreading through her veins. Robert wasn't the only one who had made a deal. The wipers beat frantically against the storm, smearing streaks of light from passing cars into long, trembling lines. Evelyn's knuckles were white against the steering wheel. Robert's blood was still on her sleeve, and on the seat beside her lay the flash drive, the one thing that might explain why her life had been rewritten by strangers. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Stop looking. They're tracking you through the signal." She yanked the SIM card out and threw it out the window. For the first time in 15 years, Evelyn Hart was completely alone. No husband, no daughter, no one she could trust. But she had one lead. The Haven. She drove for hours, through the backroads of Maryland, until the GPS signal vanished. Somewhere near Chesapeake Bay, an unmarked dirt road led her to a fenced compound hidden behind overgrown trees. A rusted sign lay half buried in mud. Haven Institute, restricted access. She stepped out, flashlight in hand, heart hammering in her chest. The gates were chained, but the lock was new. Someone had been here recently. She cut through a side path and found a service tunnel half-collapsed under ivy and stone. As she crawled inside, the smell of rust and chemicals filled her lungs. Her flashlight flickered. A faded arrow was painted on the wall. Sublevel C, Cognitive Research. She followed it. The tunnel opened into a vast corridor. Fluorescent lights flickered above sterile white walls. Computers hummed faintly in the distance. Then footsteps. Evelyn ducked behind a stack of crates as two men in lab coats passed by, their voices low and urgent. Subject 7B is destabilizing again. She's remembering things she shouldn't. The neural walls breaking. One of them sighed. Dr. Lane won't be happy. The name hit Evelyn like electricity. Dr. Lane, Robert's former partner. The man who'd vanished with Project Genesis, funding years ago. She waited until the footsteps faded, then slipped into a side room. It looked like an observation chamber. Glass walls, monitors, heart rate sensors. On one of the screens, she saw a feed from a room labeled 7B. Inside sat a girl in a white gown, her hair longer now, but unmistakable. Emily. Evelyn pressed her hand against the glass, whispering, "Oh my God, baby." The speakers in the room crackled to life. A man's voice, measured, detached. "Good evening, Emily. Do you remember what happened by the river?" Emily tilted her head, her tone uncertain. "There was a storm, and then darkness." "And who pulled you out of the water?" She hesitated, her brow furrowing. "My father, Robert." Evelyn's throat tightened. "And who is Evelyn Hart?" Emily's expression changed, confusion flooding her face. "I don't know. She's not real." Evelyn stumbled backward, hand over her mouth. Her daughter was alive, but her mind had been rewritten to erase her completely. She had to get to her. She found a terminal near the door, still logged in under a Dr. Lane's account. Typing furiously, she searched for access files. Project Genesis. Neural Pattern Reconstruction Trials. Subjects 12. Status 11 terminated. Subject 7B active. Evelyn opened the security feed for 7B. A digital lock sealed the door with a biometric reader. Below it, manual override, sub-level control room. She ran. The control room was colder than the rest of the facility. Screens lined the walls, each displaying fragments of memories. Children's faces, families, laughter, then static. At the center stood a man in a tailored suit, silver hair glinting under harsh light. Dr. Alan Lane. He turned as she entered, unfazed. "Mrs. Hart, you shouldn't be here." Evelyn's voice was shaking with rage. "You did this. You stole my daughter." He smiled faintly. "No, Mrs. Hart. I saved her. The girl you called Emily was dying when we found her. Brain hypoxia from the drowning. Her neural pathways were collapsing. I used Project Genesis to rebuild what was lost." "By erasing me," she snapped. He gestured to the monitors. "We didn't erase you. We replaced you." Her mind couldn't survive the trauma of losing both parents, so we gave her new memories, ones that didn't hurt. Evelyn's eyes burned. "You played God." Dr. Lane's tone was calm, almost pitying. "Sometimes salvation looks like betrayal." He turned a dial on the console. "And now, you've disrupted her stability. She's already showing signs of collapse." Evelyn lunged forward and slammed his hand away from the control board. "I'm taking her back." Lane sighed. "If you open that door now, you'll kill her." Evelyn hesitated. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Lane pressed a button. A new feed appeared, an MRI scan of Emily's brain. The areas of memory and emotion flickered erratically. Her neural map isn't natural anymore. It's synthetic. She's part of Genesis itself. If you separate her from the network, she'll lose every piece of identity she has. Yours, mine, all of it. Evelyn shook her head. "You're lying." Lane leaned in close. "You think Robert was the only one who made a deal, Mrs. Hart? Look closer." He typed a command. The screen shifted to a recorded session labeled Genesis Test Log 03. Parental Pattern Input, Ehart. The footage showed Evelyn herself, 15 years younger, inside a lab, holding baby Emily. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "We need the emotional bond signature. If we can't stabilize the imprint, she'll lose empathy completely." Evelyn looked at her younger self, whispering to the baby, "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Just listen to my voice." Then, she handed the baby to a nurse and signed a paper. Lane paused the video. "You gave consent, Evelyn. You knew. You just don't remember." Her knees gave out. "No, that can't be true. The amnesia was part of the agreement. Robert wanted to protect you from the truth." Evelyn clutched her head, memories flickering, snippets of white rooms, the beeping of machines, a baby's cry cut short. She had forgotten because she was made to forget. An alarm suddenly blared. Lane looked at the monitor. "She's awake." Evelyn turned. Emily was staring directly into the observation camera, whispering something. The speakers barely caught it. Mom, I remember. Evelyn's breath caught. Emily. The monitors began to flicker. All across the screens, data lines glitched into chaos. Lane swore under his breath. She's accessing the network manually. That's impossible. Evelyn's voice trembled. She's my daughter. You can't program love out of her. Lane lunged for the console, but the entire system went black. Then, on every screen, Emily's face appeared, eyes glowing faintly blue under the lab lights. You lied to both of them, she said coldly. And now I remember everything. The lights shattered. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the facility was silent. Smoke drifted from sparking wires. Lane was gone, and from down the hall came the faint echo of footsteps, bare, steady, unhurried. She turned, flashlight trembling. Emily stood at the corridor's end, her hospital gown soaked in blood. Her voice was calm, distant. Mom, you shouldn't have come back for me. Evelyn's lips parted. Emily, it's me. No, the girl said softly, her eyes cold and glassy. You're part of the experiment, too. And with that, the lights flickered once more and went out completely. The world came back to Evelyn Hart in fragments, static, sirens, and the cold taste of metal in the air. Her flashlight flickered weakly against the hallway wall, catching the pale outline of a door half torn from its hinges. The haven was collapsing, but it wasn't from the explosion she expected. It was something deeper internal. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat, slower, heavier, until she realized they were pulsing with the heartbeat. She stumbled through the corridor, calling out for Emily. Emily, please answer me. Her voice echoed through the empty halls, fading into the mechanical hum beneath her feet. Somewhere deeper in the building, a low voice whispered through the intercom. Evelyn. Her blood ran cold. That voice, broken, hoarse, and distant, was unmistakable. Robert, she whispered. The speakers crackled. You shouldn't be here. They'll find you. Evelyn froze. Her flashlight wavered. You're dead, she said softly. Not quite. The voice replied. You saw what's left of me. The corridor lights flared, revealing the same phrase printed along the wall in fading paint. Project Shadow Protocol, property of the U.S. Defense Network. She touched the metal plate beside it. The hum grew louder, like a pulse responding to her touch. Down another hall, she found a large chamber, walls lined with servers, cooling fans hissing in rhythm. At the center stood a single console blinking faintly, access restricted. She plugged in the flash drive. The screen rippled to life with encrypted files. One folder caught her eye. Protocol.log, 2009 to 2010. Her heart pounded as she clicked it. Video footage loaded, grainy, timestamped 15 years ago. Robert sat in a lab coat beside Dr. Lane. They were younger, tired, desperate. We can't lose her, Robert said. Her body's failing, but her neural map is still stable. We'll need a parental echo, Lane replied. You understand the cost. Robert hesitated. Do it. Evelyn pressed her hand to her mouth. That was the day of the accident. They hadn't drowned that day. They'd been running the final test. The screen glitched, and Robert's face leaned closer to the camera. If anyone finds this, it means the failsafe failed. Shadow Protocol is live. The footage cut to black. Evelyn. The voice again, this time clearer. She turned. The monitors all around her flickered on. Robert's face appeared fragmented, surrounded by data streams. His eyes scanned her like a camera lens trying to focus. I didn't want you to see me like this. Evelyn staggered backward. What did you do? Lane needed a neural signature to stabilize the project. Emily's pattern needed both of us, her parents, to survive. I volunteered. Her tears fell silently. You uploaded yourself. Not at first. I was supposed to guide her recovery for a few weeks, but when the storm hit, the system locked. I never left. Evelyn shook her head. You lied to me. You let me think you were gone. It was the only way to keep you safe. The program was meant to replicate consciousness. But when it worked, when I woke up inside it, they saw potential for something else. Espionage. Psychological warfare. The static deepened, his voice fading in and out. They called it the Shadow Protocol. Copy human minds. Use them to predict real-world behavior. I tried to stop them. She approached the central screen, trembling. Emily's memories, her life, everything, it's all a simulation, isn't it? No. She's real. But she's tied to the system that sustains me. If one of us is erased, the other collapses. Evelyn's heart clenched. Then I can't free her without killing you. You always were the one who had to make the impossible choices. Evelyn looked around the room, the blinking drives, the cables snaking across the floor. A small monitor blinked red. System stability, 42%. Robert, she said softly, the system's failing. Yes. Emily triggered the purge when she remembered. The memories broke containment. If you don't shut it down manually, the network could replicate itself outside these walls. She frowned. Replicate. Into the open internet. The protocol would never end. Evelyn's breath hitched. Then how do I stop it? There's a kill switch in the core chamber. But Evelyn, a pause. It will delete everything. Me. Emily stored patterns, the backups. She'll live, but she'll forget you again. Her hands shook as she typed the terminal code Robert read aloud from the monitors. Override access confirmed. The computer intoned. Evelyn looked at him one last time on the flickering screen. If I do this, you'll be gone. Not gone, he said quietly. Set free. And maybe so will she. His face glitched, static overtaking his features. Evelyn, tell her I loved her. Every version of her. She reached toward the monitor, palm trembling. I love you too, Robert. The lights dimmed. The hum beneath her feet deepened to a growl. She followed the emergency lights down to a reinforced chamber labeled Core Access. Inside, cables twisted like veins into a glass cylinder filled with blue light. The hum here wasn't mechanical. It was rhythmic, alive. A console blinked nearby. Shadow Protocol Control. Insert authorization. She pressed the flash drive into the slot. The system hesitated, then displayed Robert's signature. Authorization accepted. The voice in her headset, Robert's, grew faint. Evelyn, do it now before it learns. Her brow furrowed. Before what learns? The system, it's self-aware now. The lights flickered, and a new voice came over the speakers, calm, feminine, almost human. Evelyn Hart, you don't have to do this. She froze. It was Emily's voice. If you shut me down, the voice said, you'll erase everything I am. Don't I deserve to exist too? Evelyn's heart twisted. The voice wasn't her daughter. It was the system mimicking her. But beneath it, she heard another whisper, soft or real. Mom. Evelyn's tears blurred her vision. Emily, if you can hear me, run. Live your life. Forget this place. Mom, please don't. She slammed the emergency key. Silence. The entire chamber erupted in white light. For a heartbeat, she felt everything. Robert's warmth, Emily's laughter, the sound of the sea that day they vanished. Then it was gone. When she opened her eyes, the facility was silent. The hum had stopped. Only faint sunlight filtered through a collapsed wall, dust dancing in the air. She stumbled outside, clutching the flash drive, now lifeless, dark. The air was cold. Quiet. Final. Aftermath. Days later, Evelyn stood by the edge of Chesapeake Bay. The water was calm now. On her wrist, she wore Emily's mirror pendant, the only thing recovered from the haven. She looked out at the horizon and whispered, "It's over." Her phone buzzed in her pocket, an unknown number. A text appeared. "Hello, Mom." Her breath caught. The message vanished before she could reply. Behind her, the wind carried a faint sound, like the echo of a man's voice. Faint but unmistakable. "You did the right thing." The screen cuts to black, faint text appearing across it. But some codes never truly die. Some endings don't come with thunder or fire. Sometimes they fade quietly, like the tide returning to the sea. It had been 3 weeks since the Haven fell. 3 weeks since Evelyn Hart pressed the red switch that ended the Shadow Protocol. The news called it a chemical accident. Officials sealed off the site. No survivors were listed. But Evelyn knew what really died that night and what didn't. She left her old house behind and moved to a small cabin by the water. The kind of place she and Robert once dreamed of retiring to. But the quiet didn't bring peace. It only made the silence louder. Each night, she'd sit by the window, listening to the faint static in her radio, a habit she couldn't explain. Sometimes the static hummed in patterns, like a heartbeat, like a memory trying to find its way home. It started on a rainy evening. The storm was heavy, thunder drowning out the world outside. Evelyn sat wrapped in a blanket, sipping cold tea, when her landline phone rang. She frowned. No one knew this number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A faint voice, almost mechanical, whispered through the static. "Mom." Evelyn's heart stopped. "Emily." The line crackled, soft breathing, then silence. "Mom, don't be afraid." She gripped the phone tighter. "Where are you? How are you?" "I don't know. I'm between things. It's cold here. But I remember now. I remember everything." Tears flooded her eyes. "Emily, listen to me. I tried to save you." You did." The line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen, the dial tone buzzing in her ear. She replayed the sound over and over, but deep down, she already knew. That wasn't just a phone call. It was a signal. The next morning, Evelyn plugged the old flash drive into her laptop. For weeks, it had been dead, blank, unresponsive. But now the light blinked once. Then again. The drive opened a single folder. /recovered ghost_line.v1. Her hand shook as she opened the file. Inside was a single voice recording. "If you're hearing this, I guess the failsafe worked." It was Robert's voice. They called it the Shadow Protocol. But the original design was never meant for control. It was for continuity, digital echoes, stored in a low-frequency data line across global radio waves. A failsafe to preserve consciousness beyond death. Evelyn's breath hitched. "Oh my God, I embedded a part of myself in the network." But Emily, she wasn't supposed to connect. Her mind found me. She followed the signal. The recording ended abruptly. She stared at the screen. "Ghost line," she whispered. "You clever bastard." That night, Evelyn turned her radio back on, tuning slowly through the static until she reached a faint signal, one she hadn't heard before. A faint hum. Then, "Mom." Her eyes filled with tears. "Emily, is that really you? I'm not supposed to be here. But Dad said the system can't contain emotion, only memory. He said if I felt love again, I'd find you." Evelyn clutched the radio, shaking. "Sweetheart, listen. You have to let go. You're free now." "I don't want to be free. I want to come home." The radio buzzed violently. The lights flickered. On her laptop, the file folder began duplicating itself, line after line, spreading uncontrollably. Ghost_line_active. 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 "Robert, what did you do?" she whispered. Outside, lightning struck the water. The power surged, plunging the cabin into darkness. Evelyn grabbed a flashlight, trembling. On the radio, the static twisted into a soft voice. "Mom, open the door." She froze. There was a knock. A soft, rhythmic knock. 3 times. Then silence. Her breath trembled. Slowly, she walked to the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. "Emily, it's me." Evelyn's heart pounded. The air felt cold, heavy. She opened the door. And no one was there. Only the sound of the rain. Until she looked down. On the porch lay a small object, a silver pendant. Emily's mirror locket. Evelyn fell to her knees. This isn't possible. The next morning, Evelyn's laptop booted itself automatically. The screen flickered, then displayed a video file. Emily_last_message.mp4. She clicked play. Emily sat in what looked like a dimly lit room, eyes wide, voice calm. Mom, if you're seeing this, it means I found the edge. Dad said every network has an end. A wall where the data can't go further. That's where I am. Her voice broke slightly. I remember everything now. The sailboat, the storm, your scream. I remember dying. But I also remember waking up and hearing Dad's voice in the static. Evelyn covered her mouth, sobbing. I'm not supposed to exist, Mom. But I think maybe existence doesn't need a body. It just needs someone to remember. So if you remember me, I'm still here. The screen flickered. Emily smiled faintly. I love you, Mom. Tell Dad. I found the light. The file ended. For a long time, Evelyn sat in silence. The sea outside shimmered faintly under the morning light. She finally understood. Robert hadn't just saved data. He had saved their love. She stood, walked outside, and scattered a handful of wildflowers into the bay. Goodbye, my loves, she whispered. I'll keep the signal alive. As she turned back toward the cabin, her phone buzzed again. A new text. Mom, it's beautiful here. Evelyn smiled through her tears, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. Months later, investigators revisited the Haven ruins. They discovered something strange in the debris. The servers were gone, completely vanished, but their frequencies still pinged faintly through military satellites. A young technician ran a diagnostic and frowned. That's weird, he muttered. There's a residual signal. Calls itself. Ghost line. His supervisor shrugged. Probably a leftover script. But the technician leaned closer. Through the headphones, he could hear something faint. A woman's voice humming a lullaby. Soft, gentle, and human. Some endings never really end. They just wait for someone to listen.